Thank you all for being here. As always, I always want to make sure I take a minute to thank you guys, and then especially those of you that went to Omaha and contributed. You know, I get a chance to speak a lot, and one of the topics people ask me to speak about is leadership. And one of the best ways I've been able to describe leadership is influence. And I just wanted to thank all of you because you guys have an opportunity to influence a lot of people with all the stuff you put out. So even going back to last year, you telling the story of that team, you guys had tremendous influence. So I wanted to thank you. It's kind of hard to believe that this is our 9th season here. Like, man, I dropped Reeves off at school today and just looked over, and he's actually, he drove a buddy to school, but he's been sitting in the front seat now. And I remember barely carrying that dude and just sticking him in the seat when we first got here in the back seat. So Kristen and I, you guys know this, we've just immersed ourselves into this community and this place, and we love it. So thankful to have another year. And also thankful, you know, speaking about leadership, you guys often heard me say that a leader is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And I just want to spend a special thank you to Mitch Barnhart for not only what he's done for our program, but for all the programs. If you think about where college athletics has been, especially since COVID, this guy has just led this department with just honor in class, and just wanted to thank him. What a season last year was, yeah? Man, we got to do it again, right? Like, that's the question you're going to ask me. Like, Coach, you're going to do it again, right? Like, that, man, that was so much fun. I want to go to Omaha again. I want to take my family there. I can tell you that that would not have happened without a lot of hard work on a lot of people's part. And I also wanted to thank the Big Blue Nation. So thank you guys for covering us, and thank Mitch and the staff. But whew, man, awesome atmospheres. We've set the top 10 record crowds in the history of the program in the last 2 seasons. So thank you to the BBN. It's been a busy off season from the time we got back to Omaha. Finally felt like I caught my breath in December. It went straight into, in the summer, with high school recruiting, straight into the portal recruiting, and then this fall, right into a team where we have a lot of new faces. And finally felt like I caught my breath in December, and looking forward to the season. As far as our staff goes, I always spend a couple minutes on that. We have a couple title changes. Brock Dowd, who was our director of baseball operations, is now our chief of staff. So what does that mean? That means he's always been able to tell me what to do, but now he really can tell me what to do. He and along with Kristen, they definitely keep me straight. Logan Salo, you guys know him, All-American for us. He's now our director of analytics and scouting. So excited to get him in a full-time role. And Chase Sloan will take over our offense. He's from Rice State, a guy that I've known since he was a camper at Mississippi State. So we connected a couple years ago on the road. So he's going to run our offense. Then we have a new athletic trainer in J.D. Durham. So those are the staff changes. Everybody else is intact and in place. Season tickets, going great. I mean, it's been awesome. The premium spaces are sold out. We have, get this, we have 7 box seats left. If we don't sell those out today, all you back there with cameras, you're in big trouble. Like, we've got to get rid of those. I mean, we got 7 box seats left. And we still have some general admission. The terrace berm is still available. So would love to get those sold out. And then single game tickets went on sale today at 10. What time is it?
Tomorrow, Coach.
Tomorrow at 10? Thank you. Needed you. UKBaseballTix.com. I've got that memorized, UKBaseballTix.com. And then marketing, Greg's here. He does a lot of our marketing. Him and his staff have been phenomenal. And I have a challenge for the Big Blue Nation to build off of last year's success and momentum as a fan base. To watch, I don't know how many thousand people get involved with like walkout songs and chants and pink hats, and maybe it'll be green this year, I don't know. But like whatever we have, I just want to challenge the Big Blue Nation to do what we've done the last 2 years and just to get involved in it, because it makes an impact. And I've had college coaches tell me, Coach, that was an awesome environment. I could barely communicate with my team. We couldn't hear each other. Our players literally couldn't hear each other at times because of the crowd. So I just want to encourage our fans just to get on board again. And we have a ton of giveaways. This was a good one. I've never seen this one, Greg. A denim bucket hat. For you, like from the 90s. Some of you, some of you weren't even born yet. But we got golf towels for the series against Texas. That's the Masters weekend. Viper-style sunglasses. John, I thought you would look really cool in a pair of those. Some trading cards and much more. So Greg and his staff do a ton of things. So youth teams are back that want to run out on the field with us. They stand for the anthem. I spent a couple minutes with them before each game. That's been really neat to watch those parents and those kids show up. So if youth teams want to do that, you can sign up at probably my favorite email out there, weareuk@uky.edu. That's a simple email to remember, weareuk@uky.edu. What else we got on here, Greg? Birthdays, if you have a kid that has a birthday, that's been neat. They get to deliver the game ball and do all that. So these are all ways that we can just bring and give people experiences. And then the last thing I'll say about all this is, with all these tickets that we've sold, I want to encourage our fans to actually, now the next step is to show up. And if you can't show up, let's give these tickets away to somebody or sell them and give somebody an opportunity to have an experience that maybe they wouldn't have been able to have before. So you guys want to talk about the team? Let's talk about the team. We currently have 44 players on our team. We have 29 first-year players. I'll say that again. We have 44 guys on our team. We have 29 first-year players. What does that mean? That means that I got more gray hair this fall. I got less sleep than I've ever gotten, but I feel really good about the strides we've made so far. So you guys know this. I talk all the time about the student, the person, the player. This team just had a 3.602 team GPA. 3.6 team GPA. We had, what's the number? We had 17 guys that had a 3.6 to a 3.99 GPA. 17. And then we had another 14 get a perfect 4.0. So super proud of the guys for that. We've given over 200 hours of community service this fall. That's important to me, as you guys know, for them to wear the Kentucky jersey, but not only do they get to wear that on the field, they have to give back. And I really feel like community service and gratitude is like rocket fuel. So they've done a great job giving back. And then we've got a bunch of players that we had a super competitive fall, guys fighting for a lot of spots. And I do love their competitive spirit, and we spend a lot of time teaching them how to win. And you guys know that, but those are the two phases every team must go through. Number one, they have to learn how to compete, and number two, they have to learn how to win. And we spend a lot of time teaching them how to do those two things. We've had success the last 3 years. In the last 2 seasons, like record-breaking seasons, for really 3 reasons: because of talent, people, and culture. When I say talent, it starts with talented players, and I've hired a super talented staff. So, and then as far as people go, we've identified the right people that not only want to just make themselves better players, but more importantly, they want to help Kentucky win. And I tell people all the time when they show up, and they can go on all their visits, but I hope what stands out to them about Kentucky is the type of people on our staff and that we've brought in, and then culture has been really big. So let's talk about the pitching staff. Dan Roselle's back with our pitching coach, 6th season here, set all kinds of records since he's been here. We want to build off of last year's success. We do return 8 pitchers, and we return 1 start on the mound. So it's not a lot, but it means there's a lot of opportunity for some new people. Jackson Novey, Evan Byers, they've been the voice, along with Nick McKay, who I'll talk about here in a second. But those guys have been the voice of the pitching staff, and they've done an awesome job leading our guys. So thankful for them. And then Robert Hogan's another returner that's back. I mean, he started the 9th inning of the super regional game of the clinching one and got some key outs for us. So those 3 guys have done good. And then Ben Cleaver's been our guy that's, if you said, hey, Coach Minge, what returning pitcher has made the biggest jump, I would tell you it's Ben Cleaver. He's throwing the ball as well as anybody we have right now. 3 and 4 pitches for a strike, and excited to see what he brings. Positionally, you guys know this. I know the question is going to come. What's your offense going to look like? We're going to be whatever it takes offense. I started telling that and saying that last year. What does that mean? We want to build off of last year's success. In SEC games only, we led the SEC in batting average, on base percentage. My favorite stat here, runs. hits, RBIs, doubles. We led the league in all of those categories, and we were fourth in homers. So we're up for the challenge, and we got a bunch of guys that we feel like can just plug and play right like we've been doing. So I'll start with Devin Burks. He's back, winner in every sense of the word. He's a winner. He did have a surgery in the offseason. He's back, and we fully expect him to be healthy and ready to go for the opening day. So, but a winner in every sense of the word. James McCoy is the other positional player that we returned. We returned two guys off of two starters off of last year's team. He's, I'll tell you what, he's better offensively, but he's even made bigger strides on the mound. So James is going to get more innings than he has for us. And then Pat Herrera, Caius, there's been four guys really. Pat Herrera, Caius Gargett, Ethan Hindle, and Eli Small are all back and better. And they're ready to step in and help in any way they can. So recruiting-wise, it's been great. We brought in a top 25 recruiting class and a top 10 portal class. So Austin Cousineau and our staff has done a phenomenal job with that. There's 3 high school players that have really put themselves in a good position for significant playing time. Right-hand pitcher Nate Harris, left-hand pitcher Leighton Harris, and then Tyler Bell, the infielder. Those 3 guys have put themselves in a position to play a lot for us, and we expect them to get plenty of opportunities. And then the transfer portal's been good for us. Another top 10 transfer portal class. We brought in, get this, Matt gave me these numbers, so I trust Matt. So we brought in 202 career pitching appearances, and we brought in 79 starts. So we lost over 60 starts, but we brought in 79. And then we brought in 16 all-time all-conference and all-American honors. And then we brought in this blew me away, 773 career games played and 2,600 career at-bats. So we lost a lot, but we actually also brought in a lot as well. So I'll talk about 5 guys on the pitching side. Nick McKay, who you guys will hear from here, he's throwing the ball. Him and Ben have been phenomenal for us. Nick will be in the starting rotation for us this season. Ethan Walker, Simon Gregerson, Scott Rouse, and Chase Alderman have all thrown the ball really well. And then 6 positional players that have put themselves in a good position: Luke Lawrence, Will Marcy, Sean Montoya, Dylan Kuntz, Cole Hage, and Raphael Peltier is the catcher. Between our 2 catchers, our upperclassmen catchers, we also have 2 freshman catchers, but our 2 upperclassmen catchers have played in 3 super regionals and 1 College World Series appearance. So we feel really good about the age and experience we have there. And then last thing I'll hit on is our schedule. Super challenging schedule again. 18 games versus top contestants, 20 teams. So excited and looking forward to another competitive schedule. First 2 weekends we'll be down in Nashville. We're not going quite as far as Rachel, but we'll be in Lipscomb and Belmont. And then you guys know this. We play an extremely challenging schedule because RPI is our friend. And we've got to put ourselves in a good position, which we feel like we've done the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, questions? That was a lot of info.
Vic, you mentioned Tyler Bell. He was a huge hit.
For you guys, what does he bring, and where do you see him fitting in with you guys?
Yeah, 2nd round draft pick. I mean, many of those don't show up to school. He's the highest draft pick to show up to a college this year. You know this, but there's 5 tools that you're graded at: the run, the hit, the field, the throw, and the power, and he checks a lot of those boxes. So you're not a 2nd round draft pick without those tools. And then for me, the 6th tool is the makeup. And this guy is extremely competitive. He's confident. He's non-defensive. And he was voted the hardest worker on our team. So let that sink in. He came in as a freshman, but not only is he super talented, he was voted by his peers as the hardest worker on the team. So brings a lot of things, and he's going to play significantly for us.
When you built that stadium, you talked so much about putting that picture of Omaha in the team room, like that's the goal. Now that you've been there, how does that change?
Yeah. Now the next step is to win it. You know, I think Rachel will tell you the same thing. Like, she's been, and she wants to win it. You know, so that would be the next thing. That's the next thing to knock down. And, you know, we're super thankful over 9 years. You know, we've been to, 3 super regionals and really 8 seasons, because COVID, we didn't have one after being in 120 years and been at 0. So we've been to 3 and 8. So it's good to make it, but that wall's been knocked down, and now we got to win the whole thing. And I told you guys this from the time I got hired here. If I didn't think we can do this, I would have never taken a job here. So got another wall knocked down, but We got another one to go. Yep.
With as big of a freshman class as you have, how important is that Omaha experience that you and some of the other players have now?
Yeah, I'm just super proud of the guys that we do have back because, we have a saying in our program, the standard is the standard. And they've done a phenomenal job of explaining and teaching and leading and showing our guys what the standard looks like. So those guys have done that. And I'm just thankful that we do have guys that have been there and done that and that can also show the guys and teach them of what it's supposed to look like and to uphold that standard. So it's going to be super important. And those freshmen, they watched from afar, but now they're here and it's their job to contribute to help us get to another one.
Nick, you mentioned the importance of culture. I don't think I've seen a team last year that supported each other more than others. Do you see that for this team? And who are some of the leaders from that aspect?
Yeah, John, you bring up a good point. And, that takes me back to this fall. We finished our first scrimmage and all the eyes are on me and, there's a bunch of guys. There's 29 new faces just staring at me. And I intentionally asked them this question. This is very intentional. As soon as scrimmage finished, they're all sitting there, all right, what's Coach Min's going to say? And I asked them, I was like, who was a great teammate today and why? And John, about 2 people spoke, and there were 2 returners. And I got home that night, and I told Kristen, I'm like, we're in big trouble. We got a long way to go. She's like, what do you mean, Nick? And I said, Kristen, listen to this. So fast forward 6 weeks later, the one question I kept asking them after every scrimmage first was, who was a great teammate today and why? Well, 6 weeks later, they talked about each other for 7.5 minutes. And I'm like, Kristen, we're not where we want to be, but thank God we're not where we used to be. And now they recognize. Jackson ran down and grabbed me my jacket. This guy ran up to the locker room because I forgot this. This guy brought me my glove in between innings. Not only did this guy bring me my glove, you know what? He brought me a water bottle. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, what about this guy? Well, this guy not only brought me my glove or water bottle, Coach, he brought me the whole bin of snacks. Like, it just went to like a whole new level. And we'll have a chance to be great if they can celebrate each other's successes without jealousy, envy, and all those things. So, what's that going to look like? You know what, John? They've all had opportunities to play because right now we have 2 scrimmages and they're all playing. And I wish I could tell you I know how it's going to go. I think I know how it's going to go. But when they don't see their name out there and they're not playing anymore, that will have to be addressed. But we've had teams and people that have come before that have been super unselfish. And if they're not, quite frankly, John, they won't be in our program. Because that is part of our success, is their ability to celebrate each other's successes and help Kentucky win, and to remove themselves personally from that. And if we do that, and when we do that, we'll have success. And if we don't, we won't. So, but there's been time and intentional effort spent on that for sure.
When you talk about McCoy, is it hard to balance how you use him with all he can do? And is there a better arm in right field in the SEC than he is?
I don't know if there's a better one. I have no idea, but I know this. Like, we've been intentional about how we've used him this year. We've gotten to the spot where now in scrimmages he'll just DH, especially the days he's throwing, and then he can kind of warm his arm up at his pace and things like that. So we'll have to be smart with how we use him. He's just been so good on the mound, like his presence. And last year, he came in out of Missouri and saved us the game. If he doesn't get that win, you can argue that we don't win the SEC. So it's just become more and more apparent to us how special he's on the mound. So he's older, he's experienced, and he's done a good job communicating with us. And we've kind of tweaked how we've done his bullpens now. There'll be a challenge, but I feel good about his level of communication. And he can communicate, and we trust him.
Nick, for the last few years, you've had the best shortstop in the country, and 2 different guys. Now you got to fill out a lineup card with none of those guys back. What's that going to feel like? What does it already feel like?
Thanks for reminding me, Dick. No, we really like the guys we have. And you know what? Defense is crucial for us. 2 years ago, we led the country in fielding percentage with 984, and the standard is to field 980. And last year's team met that standard. We fielded 980. So we spent a lot of time. We'll take 2 batting practices today where they're going to have live balls smoked at them, right? And we're going to expect them to field it. So I can tell you, when we first started the fall, we weren't close to meeting that standard. We have a practice fielding percentage. We chart, and we do every single one of those. Rachel really challenged me on this. When we actually got to this new ballpark, I just remember talking to her about defense. Cliff Hagan Stadium was all about run production. And she's just like, no, you got to create a culture where, like, you not only dive, Rich, I don't know if you remember you teaching me this, but, like, that's the expectation is not only you dive, but you make the play. And then it becomes this becomes the norm. So we've spent a ton of time on that. And, so they've met the standard in practice. Now it's their opportunity to meet the standard in a game.
Coach, last year you were able to shorten games because your bullpen was so good. You brought in a guy like Simon Gregerson this offseason. Where do you feel like your bullpen is coming into this year?
Yeah, we lost our career season appearance leader in Cam O'Brien and then Johnny Humble, right? Last year's team, this is pretty awesome. We had 9 guys sign pro, 9 of them, which is awesome. That's what you want, and then you got to replace a lot of that. So Simon Gregerson, when you look at the combination of the guys that we have coming back out of our bullpen between Jackson Novi, Robert Hogan, Simon Gregerson, Evan Byers, we have a lot of guys that have a ton of experience. And the beauty I like about that is I just named 4 guys, and I named 2 righties and 2 lefties. And, oh, by the way, Jackson's arm slot is a little different than Evan Byers. And I mean, Evan probably thinks he's taller than Jackson, but he's nowhere close, right? But those guys, it's like we have different looks. And that's the beauty of what I love about what Dan Roselle does is we have guys that can do different things. And, I always talk about the clock. I want an arm slot for every time slot on the clock. And I really feel like we have that again this year. So we have experience. And, coming into last year, we thought we knew what Johnny was going to do in Cam O'Brien. But, man, those are first-year guys. So we feel good about the guys we have returning. And will they be those 2 guys? Are we going to set the appearance record again? I have no idea. But we do like the makeup of those guys coming back.
Nick, you guys ripped off pretty significant win streaks over the last couple of years during the regular season. Obviously, the 17-game heater a couple of years ago and then a couple solid ones last year. What does it take to string together games like that? I know that's been a big message to your team to just go next one. And do you feel like this team's ready to string together games?
The first thing I'll tell you is, you do really have to buy into the everything expires at midnight mentality. If you don't, you can't do it. You can't do it. So how do we practice that? I mean, we literally have guys, we chart our rounds in batting practice. There's a standard. They're trying to meet the standard, right? So they literally meet the standard, and we're like, yeah, that a baby. We're like, it expired. Be a great teammate. You get over it. You just have to train these muscles, right? In the way they think to just good and bad. It's over. It's expired. Move on to the next thing. What's next? Go to the next thing. Help your team, So we got to train those muscles. And we've started to train the muscles with these guys. Now, confidence comes from a lot of things. One thing confidence comes from is knowing that you belong. And when you have 29 new players, each of them are at their own spot, right? Confidence also comes from skill acquisition. You got to maintain and you have to have a skill. But when they know that they belong, and they truly know that and they believe that, then they can, whether it's good or bad, they can move on and immediately go to the next thing. Then we'll have a chance, and will this team be able to do that? I think they will, but hopefully you appreciate my transparency here. I don't know. We're about to find out, though, and I'm looking forward to it.
You've established a reputation as one of the most aggressive base running teams in the country in recent years. With all this turnover in the roster, do you have another group of guys that can kind of take advantage of that skill set?
We do, and Matt brought up the point. I think we brought in guys the guys we brought in have over 100 career stolen bases. So, and then to go along with the guys that we do have here. So we do a really cool thing. We actually time our guys in stolen bases. From the time they take their lead to the time they hit the base, there's a time. It's a whole mathematical equation. If the catchers are 2-0 and the pitchers are 1-3, that's a 3-3, and we know if our base stealer is a 3-3 or less, it takes a 10th for the tag. We're stealing. We're going. It's how we lead. We were among the nation's leaders in stolen bases. So it's a mathematical equation, something we spend time, effort, and energy on, and we have that piece again. And the cool thing about what's happened over this is like we've had a ton of different ways to steal bases now. Now we're like fake bunt stealing. Now we're slash hitting and running. Like we're doing a ton of different things to try to recreate more. It's like we're getting our offense to a spot where it's just like we just keep building off of it. So we'll have those guys, and I look forward to us. We want to have at least 5 guys with double-digit stolen bases. That would be good, and we feel like we can put 5 guys in our lineup that could at least get double-digit stolen bases. So that's good.
How much pride do you take in unpredictability of the offense? You're gonna bunt, like you said, hit and run, fake bunt and steal, slash, this,
Yeah.
that. Not a lot of schools do that, at least some are starting to, but traditionally, it's been power ball.
So I got to tell you this. I got this text from Grant Smith. I'm going to read it to you. I read it to our team this week. I'm not going to tell you the school, but Grant goes to pro ball, and he says, dude from beep, I'm not saying the school, told me today that they hated playing us, thought something different was going to happen every pitch, had him thinking about a bunch of different things at once, and was super happy when the series was over. Thought we had a million different ways to beat him. And I'm like, that's the greatest text I've gotten in a long time. And I'm like, that's exactly what we want our opponents to feel. John, I mean, Brian, that's a great question. Like, that's what we want them to feel. We want them to feel like. So with that said, when you do all the easy coaching, I've said this over and over, easy coaching is just sitting back and doing nothing. That's easy. That's easy coaching. You never put a play on, you never do anything, and you just let them play. That's easy coaching. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in putting pressure on them. So when that happens, our guys are going to make mistakes. And it's going to give you guys a lot of things to talk about. It's like, why did he do that? He can't believe he did that. And it's just like, why did he do that? Because Coach Bench wants him to be aggressive. Stop, period. Next, expired. Like, and as long as they're being aggressive, I'm okay with it. I'm not okay with them being tentative. So we want them to play with brains and guts. There's both. Casey Stengel, the great manager, said that. He wants his players to have brains and guts, and that's what we want. We want our players to play with brains and guts, and we just feel like, I don't care what the analytics say about Major League Baseball, I don't care. We're dealing with 18 to 24-year-olds, and we want to create pressure. So we have to do that. So, Brian, like we've done we're getting ready to put something in tomorrow in our bunting circuit that we're going to add that we feel like can cause our opponents just another thing to think about. So we're going to keep doing that. And when we're at our best, we're doing that. And, you know, I had another guy this past summer out of the portal. I'm not going to tell you the school he was leaving. It was in our league. And we were just like, man, Coach, I got to tell you, I didn't understand why before we played you, we worked on picks and bunt defense so much. Like, we didn't work on that since, like, before the season started. And he's like, then we played you. And I was like, oh, I get it. And it's just like, that's what we want. That's what we want. We want our opponents to prepare differently.
As you talk about building on last year, knocking down that next door, how much direction have you been given, if any, about the changes that are coming and the investment in the program with roster limits, scholarships?
Yeah.
And how important is that going to be to taking that next step?
Yeah, so it's been clear. It's been said that our rosters now will go to a 34-man roster. I think, you know, there's talks about us getting up to 38. How many scholarships we're going to get, I mean, that's still kind of fluid, but it's going to, all I know is this, it's going to be better than it was. Right? So we'll be in the 20s. We used to have 11.7. Now we're going to be in the 20s. I'm super thankful for that. Why? Because our family's been paying a lot of money to come to school here, and that's been one of the hardest, before NIL, that was the hardest part of my job, is juggling the 11-7. How do I sit across from a family and say, we loved your son, but you got to pay $40,000 to come here? Like, that was hard. That was hard. So hopefully we've kind of shrunken that, and we've got our program to a spot where we'll be able to have better conversations, and it'll be, you know, not as expensive for some of these families. So I'm personally looking forward to the smaller rosters. I just feel like it just gives us more time to work on our culture, develop deeper relationship with the players. I mean, there's schools in our league and around the country that had 60 players in the fall. They're like choosing from 60 guys. So I just believe in Austin Cousineau and the rest of our staff, our ability to evaluate. And as long as we're evaluating at the right correctly, and then we're recruiting, those are two separate things. The evaluation process and recruiting process, those are two separate. Sometimes people wrap them into one. But as long as we're evaluating at the right clip, I feel good about the product we'll put on the field.
You kind of alluded to this when you talked about speaking to the players in the fall, but so much of your program for the fans, I think has been, and then you talked about it a lot, is the dugout culture, basically, if you will. And fans kind of bought into all that. They love that stuff. And it's got to happen organically, I know, which it has the last couple, 3 years especially. How do you feel about the potential for that this year?
So you guys know this, but Craig Skinner is an amazing coach. Just shout out to him. 8th SEC championship in a row. Just amazing, amazing coach. Well, Rachel, do you remember what year that was? We went to breakfast. I mean, lunch at Malone's. It was like,
No.
It was meaningful though,
Yeah.
gosh.
That, Dunning.
yes,
I can't remember.
yeah. So we got a text from Craig saying, "Hey, I've got a good friend of mine's in town, Hall of Fame coach. If you guys want to go to dinner and just pick his brain and like us all get together, like let's do it." So we went, and one of the things he taught us was that players are responsible for two things. Number one, how they play, and then how they help the team outside of how and when they're playing. Right? Tell him, Jackson. What is it? What are the two things you're responsible for?
How you play and how you help the team outside of how or when you're playing.
So proud of him. Yes, Jackson. So we've really, Dick, to your point, we've really hammered that home. Like, you're responsible for your play. You're not blaming your coaches. You're not blaming anybody else. But then the next thing is you're responsible for how you help the team outside of how or when you're playing, meaning like you just struck out. You're not playing anymore, right? Like you're heading to the bench. Talk to the guy on deck. Talk to the guy in the hole. Like, help them. It doesn't matter. Like, it also says how you're playing. So you could have just struck out. You have some value to add, right? So we've really taken this and made this part of our identity. That, like, we're going to do that. So you could only do that if you're unselfish and you just get out of the way of yourself. So I say all that because if you're not on the mound or on the field or in the bullpen getting ready to get loose, whatever it might be, if you're not playing, then really your job is to help the team. So what are you doing? So if you're just standing there, just holding up the rail, like, I'm sorry, I can pull somebody out of the stands to do that. Right? Like, no, with all due respect. Like, so what are you doing? Like, what value are you bringing? Like, dude, add some value. Like, doesn't mean you got to, if your deal is not screaming at the top of your lungs, don't do that. But, man, you're smart enough. Like, can you be working? Can you be trying to steal pitches out of the pitcher's grip? Can you see if the infielders are maybe moving a little early? Like, can you see, maybe steal a sign from the coach? Like, what are you doing to help the team? You know, now, what I've really appreciated is really a lot of this starts with our pitchers. Like, they're the ones, like, you know, like, they'll tell you, like, you got to have some personality. And we got some guys with some personality. Now, is it going to be what it's been? I have no idea. And I don't want them to even try to be last year, right? Like, to your point. So it's like, I'm kind of curious to see, like, how is this going to be? And based on some of the comments from our scrimmages and hearing them chirp each other, it's like, Tim and I had a great conversation. He's our sport administrator, Tim Burnell, just amazing leader. But it's like, and he just loves being out there watching the guys get after each other. And my gut tells me it's going to be good again. Like, at what level? Like, are they going to be doing the different bubble gums? What did we have last year, Jackson? What were some of the antics we did? Like,
Side by six.
so in the sixth inning, they all turned their hats sideways. Yeah.
The first time a runner got to second base, we all imitated Coach Finch in the dugout.
I'm curious to see if that comes in.
Bubblegum third.
But the Rattling Bog.
Rattling Bog with the water cups. In the fourth inning, we all stood in groups of 4.
I mean, they're just, yeah, just the fact that, like, college kids, I want them to do two things. Number one, compete, and I want them to have fun. And as long as they're doing that, if they can't have fun if they're not competing. Like, sorry. Like, man, we could just go have a little get together afterwards and just hang out. Like, you got to compete. That's number one. And then if they're having fun, that's good.
So Nick, along those lines, 29 new faces, how much, do you think some of that stuff piqued their interest into coming and being a part of it?
Yeah.
And the aggressive stuff.
Yeah, all of it. There's no greater, you guys know this, there's no greater platform than playing in the College World Series. Rachel knows that. Like, when you get that, all eyes of college baseball are on that. And I just felt like it's why I opened this up with thanking you guys for telling the story, because you guys have influence and you influenced a lot of people. You guys with these cameras, like you guys influenced the Big Blue Nation, you influenced eventual recruits, you influenced a lot of people telling our story. So it's why I'm thankful. It's why, I opened up this whole thing thanking you guys, because we can't do what we want to do without getting the story out. It's why I always thank Matt May. Thank you, Matt, like for all you do, because telling the story is so important. And without that, there's no connection. So like people got connected with the team. They got connected with the players. Like why? Because everything Matt's done and everything that you guys have done. So that we have to continue to tell the story. Now there's just a lot more stories this year. There's 29 new stories to tell. So, but I'm looking forward to it. And I really believe them to, I believe they'll have a good time in there again. And I'm looking forward to see what new things they come up with. Although we don't have a designated dugout captain, that was Ryan Hakenau, so I'm looking to see who takes over that role, because that has not been established.
One or two more guys.
What did you learn from the scrimmages, Nick, both against outside competition in the fall and for you guys internally?
You know, first thing I told them after the first one is, you know, I was super impressed. I thought they were a team. You know, that was the first thing I challenged them on. It's just like, man, can we be a team? Not everyone's going to play. I want to see you guys. Like, they were what we hoped they would be. And then the second thing that I learned, let me think about this one. I thought our guys were competitive. I thought they could, like, execute our system. The first one, you know, I challenged them to be the team. And then the second one, we had been in the fall later, can you execute our system? Can you be the tip of the spear for our pitchers on the mound? Can you attack? Can you hold the runners? Can you attack and field your position? All the things that we do differently. Can you land multiple pitches for a strike? And can you do all the things we're asking you to do? Can you hit on the 6 components of offense? And they actually did that. So I was happy and pleased with them from that standpoint.
Have to go
Last
very
one.
deep in your lineup during that postseason run, but you got those 3 of those 4 young guys you talked about on the field in Omaha in that last game. How important was that experience? I mean, what do you hope they got out of it, even though they maybe weren't hitting a lot in that run?
Yeah, the one thing I'll compliment our staff on some things here, because they spend a ton of time. Like, for example, when we leave here, I'll go get ready for our hitting groups. Like, we got 3 guys coming in at a time. Every 15 minutes, they're just rolling in. And we spend individual time with every player. So it doesn't matter if you're the starting shortstop or you're the bullpen catcher. We genuinely spend, like, we don't structure it to where it's like, hey, this guy's going to get 40 minutes and this guy's only going to get 10. And I think that's really important for their development. And it's why guys have gotten better in our program. It's why a guy like Emilian Petre can go, Matt, did he have 4 or 7 at-bats as a freshman? He had 4. Is that what he had, Dick? So Emilian Petre went from having 4 at-bats as a freshman to being an all-SEC player as a sophomore to being a second-rounder and signing for $1.5 million. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because our staff has spent a ton of time individually trying to develop those guys. And they basically show up every day knowing that the coaches are still going to pour into them. And sure, they're not maybe getting opportunities on the field, but it doesn't mean we're not going to help continue to develop them. So those guys that have been in our program, like the guys I mentioned, like Patty and Caius and Ethan and Eli, those guys have been there. And they've gotten some at-bats and they've played. But now I'm just going to give them more opportunities, you know, along with some of these other guys. Especially early, you guys will be like, Coach, man, this is like your 37th different lineup. Yeah, we got a lot of new guys. I'm trying to figure out what the best one is, you know. So,
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Nick and James and Jackson will be available after Coach Lawson meets with you guys.
can I brag on Rachel Lawson for a minute? I'm like super happy to go like first this time just so I can brag on her. Let's do a did you know? I'm going to do a did you know about Rachel Lawson. Or you know what? I'm going to ask a question. Does anyone here know how many super regionals she's been to? Does anybody know? Because this, hold on. I know, don't say. She's been to 8 super regionals. She's been to 8. Does anyone have any idea on how many seasons, consecutive seasons, she's been to the postseason?
No?
No.
Yeah.
I had to ask him how many years.
James, how many is it?
I heard you said it there in 16.
She's been to 16 consecutive regionals. I want you to let that sink in. She's the all-time winningest coach in Kentucky history. She does as much for this department. Her and her staff are amazing. Man, I get choked up thinking about her. They spend all this time. You do Halloweens, they do Christmas, like, she's been unbelievable. She's been a national seed 7 of the last 11 seasons. 7 of the last 11. She's been a national seed. Amazing coach. Welcome to the stage, D. Rachel. No,